This episode is brought to you in partnership with Wacom. Across the globe, learning is still handwriting-centric, especially in mathematics and science. This can make the shift to digital tasks challenging. Many schools are seeking effective apps and hardware to ensure a smoother transition for digital learning, especially for STEM lessons.
Expanding digital pen and ink technology from teachers to students opens up new possibilities for communication and collaboration in and out of the classroom. Using pen-enabled devices, teachers and students can explain complex concepts, take notes, provide feedback, and show their work quickly and easily.
Wacom pen displays and tablets easily plug in to the existing IT equipment in the classroom, enabling members of the class to interact with the digital content being shared. The teacher never even needs to turn their back on the class. Collaboration is simple when working on shared documents and apps with the digital pen. There's no new software to learn. You just work with the pen on the screen or tablet instead of the mouse and keyboard on your computer.
As educators, myself, Steve, and Ben have all integrated the use of Wacom technology into where we've worked in education, into colleges and schools, and we have seen the benefits for ourselves. So go check it out for yourself. The link is in the show notes for this episode.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Hello and welcome to the Edufuturists podcast. Here we are again. It is episode 195, and we've got a very special guest coming up all the way from Romania, and we'll introduce her in just a couple of minutes. But before we get there, lads, since the last episode, we met in person down in Leeds, and quite an exciting scoping out the venue for the Edufuturists Awards next year.
Yeah, well, kind of. Yeah, are we announcing? Are we talking about where we're going and what we're going to be doing? I didn't know we were going there, Dan. You started something there, and you announced it as the Edufuturists Awards. But are we going to be playing a little bit different on some of that as well? But yeah, celebration certainly.
It's all to be revealed. Yeah,
and it was great to me and Ben. We've had it booked and in the planning for a long time. Dan couldn't make it across last time. I'd other stuff going on, but it was great to see Dan's face when we went into the venue for the first time last week, and it's exciting. It's exciting times. I think to have a face-to-face event, showcase, celebration.
Yep.
A real. I think people are going to love the venue, and I think they're going to love what we tried to achieve from the award/celebration of and coming together of the community. So looking forward to announcing it, and watch this space. It's going to be on social pretty soon.
It's very much our kind of space as well, isn't it? It's that kind of venue where it's a bit edgy, a bit punky, a bit cool. So I'm super looking forward to it. I think it's going to be good.
Yeah, and then we spent the rest of the day planning, discussing, and in Brewdog. So our other passion of so that was pretty cool. But it was a good day. Yeah, it's always nice to do the podcast and do it virtually, but always good to catch up and everything else. And and it's been, I went to an event, speaking of this week, on Tuesday in Compound in Birmingham. So it was a global event by one of the partners that I work with. And they had Banksy's there, met the Peaky Blinders. And at 2:00, they had a speakeasy. And they then had the loudest band in the world. And I was like, I used to be a teacher. Tuesdays at 2:00 just didn't used to be this fun. So it was good. It was good. But it's been a good week. I had back-to-back meetings today, pretty tired, but it's been a good week. And yeah, looking forward to this one tonight. How about you guys? What have you been up to?
It's been a bit of a whirlwind week for me. It's not been as exciting as meeting the Peaky Blinders or looking at Banksy's. I've been writing video scripts for some online learning videos, and been doing some online training at digital skills training at a local college. So yeah, it's been good. Had a little bit of fun, and looking forward on Saturday to going and watching Biffy Clyro in Leeds. So I'm looking forward to that. So Leeds in twice in 2 weeks is I might need to make sure I get me vaccinations. Sorry for any listeners from Leeds. Sammy, don't shout at me, I promise.
And me, by the way, also.
Sorry.
Leeds.
You're not listening, Steve. You've never listened. We've just realised that you've just heard your voice on the podcast on that advert for the first time ever because you never listened to the podcast. Dan, what about your week, bud?
Yeah, it was good. I was just thinking there, what could I mention? I don't think it's been a particularly exciting one, to be honest.
No.
I've got an office now, which is exciting.
Is it a glass office?
It's not. No, it's not.
Corner office?
Is it in the metaverse? Can you pick up a can?
Yes, very good. Yeah, Dom's got an office. Is it a little bit like Ricky Gervais's office?
I haven't been in it yet, to be honest. I'm going to go in it tomorrow for the first time.
Have they just taken out the mops and the brushes for you?
Yeah.
Is it a room inside a room inside a room? If only architecture and buildings could be fun, eh? Who'd have thought it?
Nice segue. Good segue, Steve. You've been doing this for not 195 episodes, but nearly.
Yeah, let's bring in our guest. So this is a new kind of angle for us. This one we haven't explored education specifically from the architectural side of things that Steve just alluded to. But yeah, I'm quite excited to get into it because I think this is educational innovation at the cutting edge. Of course it is. That's what we talk about. So we're excited to introduce our guest in this episode and welcome Iarina Tava. Iarina, before you start, did I say that right? Have I?
Iarina, actually, but close enough.
Iarina, sorry. You know what? I meant to, when we were talking before we went live, I meant to ask you to pronounce your name, and I completely forgot. So I apologize for that. But it's great to have you on, Iarina. All the way from you in Bucharest, did you say?
In Bucharest, yes. And thank you so much for inviting me. I'm very happy to be here tonight. And I'm a bit nervous, but mostly happy, so I think it will be okay.
Yeah, you'll be great. Just relax. We'll just have a relaxed conversation. And
just don't do what I do. Could have been worse. Dan butchered your name a little bit, but it could have been worse. I could have introduced you, and who knows what it would have come out as. So yeah, thanks for that one, Dan, for taking me on that one. But yeah, don't be nervous. I think our guests are going to have a real good half an hour, or however long we delve into it. So yeah, looking forward to it.
Yeah, so you're an architect and you've had your own practice for a couple of years now. Do you want to just give us a bit of an insight into what makes you passionate about architecture, and then we'll jump into what you're doing in education?
Yeah, so the thing that attracts me most to architecture actually is the play with scales that you as an architect can do, also design a building, but do spaces and also do objects. So I like to work between the scales and to play around and not to make myself rigid in any way, and to look at things in this sort of perspective. And you can have, as an architect, you are all the time, in a built environment. So you all the time have this critical eye, and you all the time receive information from the space. And I think this is very great, and it keeps me going and keeps me all the time looking forward to things and looking forward to improvements.
Yeah, that sounds, it's like a real, I suppose you're getting that chance to create something from scratch, and then not only create it in front of you, but then to see it kind of be manifest must be quite exciting when you see the finished article.
Yeah, and the finished article, but the lived one also. That's a part of it. You have the finished object, but how it lives through the people that uses that object or that building, and how is life in a city and in a community also. So that's a big part afterwards.
I can imagine. Have you ever seen, there's a British TV show called Grand Designs. Have you ever come across it?
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite TV shows. But yeah, I'm always like that when I'm watching it. At the start, when they show you the plan, like the 3D model of what it's going to look like, I just can't wait to get to the end to see what it's going to be like. Yeah, I just wanted to mention.
Do you ever fast forward it to the end?
The design process. Oh no, okay.
I sometimes watch the start and then go off and do something else and come back at the end.
Yeah, I always find it interesting that the script is always going to be they go over budget. The weather's really bad because we're in England, and then it magically still turns around and it looks wonderful in the end. Somehow it manages to make the picture. I'm not from that world in any way, shape, or form. I have to be the least capable person of DIY in the whole world, of building anything. I'm great at breaking things, but I'm not particularly good at building anything. So I wonder, like, architecture, I think you were talking there, it's quite philosophical about not just the idea of building, it's that idea about how it lives through other people and that kind of the story that it tells. So there's a story behind you getting into architecture, isn't there? So I wonder if you could talk to us a little bit about that, and then as we get into that, might lead into why you've done the project that you've done.
Well, yeah, the story was that I like drawing a lot. I was also good at maths. And these were the two ingredients. I wanted something creative to do. So I thought that architecture would be the best thing. And after starting to be a student, I realized that it was the best decision, because actually doing architecture kind of opens up the way to doing a lot of things, because you kind of understand and get into this design process and design thinking, and how can you think about something looking forward and considering a lot of I don't know, options or problems. Or so I think that, yeah, this is something that all architects share, you know, this possibility, this open possibility to do a lot of things by doing this work job. Yeah. And well, this part with the architectura, if you guys want me to get into the association and the My School Can Be Cool project.
Yeah, absolutely. And what made you get involved with it? And I know, because is it a volunteer
Yeah,
basis
I'm a volunteer architect in this association. So well, this association, to talk a little bit about it, to give you some context. So they want to bring architecture in the school curriculum in Romania. They also want to bring kids closer to this field and into the design process in general, because they want to raise awareness about architecture and create this critical view of it and a critical view of space within kids. And also they have a number of projects. They recently celebrated 10 years, so they're an old association and very very important here. They're founded and sustained by the Romanian Order of Architects. And one of the projects is this, My School Can Be Cool, a project that means to do an intervention, a built intervention with the kids in a school to reshape the face of the school. And yeah, when I heard of it, I was an intern doing my internship in an architecture studio. And I didn't have the time then, because you need to get really involved. It's a 1-year process. So, but it stuck to my mind. And from the first moment I heard of it, I was like, this is a great idea to bring kids closer to architecture and to help them build things in the school. So I saw the potential to change things and change the built environment through them. And then I waited to have my own practice and to have the flexibility necessary to do this. And when I had my practice, I entered the program, and I was very determined to do it also in my hometown. And this is a part of my story, actually, because I did it in the school where I was a student in my middle school in Curtea de Argeș, my hometown. So I think the emotional drive was a very big part of it, because I wanted to go back and help the local community and to show them something new.
Yeah, it sounds amazing. And I think we regularly on the podcast talk about students being involved in the design of their own learning, but to actually go to the stage of students designing the actual physical spaces in which they learn is really exciting, really, because I suppose I think given agency to students to be able to decide their own learning paths and personalized learning, and but I don't think it enters our minds that the actual building itself can be collaborated on with the students. Like, the process in England just tends to be it's contracted out to a group who plan the building, and it's fairly basic or fairly traditional style classrooms and spaces, but actually that's at that early stage and that design of the actual architecture, to have students involved is quite exciting. I suppose how was it? Because I suppose don't they always say if people who work on TV don't ever work with children and animals because they're just very unpredictable. I suppose how was it? How was the process for you being a professional architect and bringing young students into the mix? Was it exciting? Was it frustrating? Was it how was that whole process?
Yeah, well, so they were 8th grade, so teenagers, yeah, and this was a big part of it. But I think this motivated me a lot because I felt the need to be like a magician, no? To present them the information and knowledge of architecture in a very appealing way for them, and to speak their language or to go into their world with pop culture references or games or whatever. And yes, they tend to go at the beginning when they understood that we will build something, an intervention in the school to change the school space. They went crazy, like, we want a swimming pool. And I told them, okay, we cannot do a swimming pool. We need to lower our expectations, but we will do an improvement. But the process of this project is, so they firstly learn the ABCs of architecture through games. After that, we analyze the space. So we explore the space together. We kind of look around and look into ourselves, also our emotion. What does this space mean to me? It is appealing or not, to explore in a phenomenological way. They do a questionnaire. We have a discussion together, and after that, we start to go into the debate of the concept. What do we want? What do we need to improve? So, they basically, when they get into the process, they understand that it's something that it will develop and transform over time, their thoughts. No, not the immediate idea, but something that, it's more real and, it's more experience and felt. So.
Yeah, I really like that. I like that idea that even in the design process of the buildings, that it's something that will take time, and it's something that it iterates over time as well, isn't it? And I suppose my thought on that is that obviously when a building is built, is it that you need to create space and flexibility to be able to be agile and change things as it goes, so that because people's views will change, or because obviously bricks and mortar when they're up, is there? Yeah, I suppose, how does that agility thing work and that flexibility thing work when things are actually built rather than just being designed?
Yeah, well, this is today. This is a very important idea, to create flexible spaces and open spaces that can accept a multitude of functions and functionalities. But back in the day, it wasn't. So here I want to kind of go into the context of the schools and the infrastructure of the schools in Romania, because it's very specific in a way. So the schools in Romania are most of the time not very good. The majority of them in the cities are built in the communist period. So you have this very anonymous spaces and basic spaces, with corridors and classrooms left and right. And you have this big discrepancy, because now the kids are connected to the internet and knowledge and everything that's new, and they have new beliefs, that they have new desires and new needs. So you have this discrepancy between the individual and what the individual thinks and his mindset, and the space that surrounds him. So here is the My School Can Be Cool program, where the program enters, and we propose to improve these spaces by giving it a new face, a contemporary face, through the filter of the children. So you have a teacher, an architect, and a classroom of kids working together to do this design process. But the intervention, and here I want to mention, it's most of the time small. So we don't create a building from scratch, we improve a space. And I think this is also in the mindset. So, okay, we don't have the means to do a building from scratch, but also it's a sustainable part, no? Because you can transform what you have, and you can come with a new filter. Maybe you can give it an ironic tone or a contemporary tone, but you can transform the space and you can work with it.
Yeah, it sounds good. So, can you give us some examples of how you did that? I know you said you'd done that with, or maybe I read it of the high school that you went to, in your hometown. And could you give us some examples of how you did transform the space?
Yeah. So as I said, it was this process with them, ABCs, analyzing the space, and so at the end, they wanted to have a space for socialization because they lacked such a space. The school was very rigorously about learning and sports, and that's it. And they wanted a place to hang out and a place that really represented them. So in the schoolyard, we had this concrete platform, and they used to sit there and hang out during the break. And it became like, I don't know, embedded in their mindset that that's the place for a hangout, but it was improper. So it wasn't a proper space. No, it was just a concrete platform, and that was it. So yeah, we transformed that space. We did a wood structure and a kind of a stair shape, and we played with the volumes to give it like to be more dynamic. And we painted it with spray cans, and we did a design to it, and we created this space that was already in their mind, like this is the hangout place, but now we gave it a proper form and image. And it was really interesting because actually when I was a student there, it was also our hangout place 20 years ago. So yeah, basically in a way, yeah, nothing changed, but actually after this year it did. So yeah.
And so obviously the project is there, and like you say, you'll go in for a particular school and you'll change the concept of, or the idea of what a space, what they think it is, and still keep that and develop it. And apologies, my children are having fun outside screaming. But how does that stimulate post-project? Do you see more ideas being stimulated and cascaded across, or is it a case of try one in one organisation and then move on to the next? What does that look like? Is it something that is developed in a ripple effect post project, or is it a move on to the next one, I guess?
Yeah, I think it has a ripple effect because it creates this excitement within the community and the students. Because I think the biggest part of this project is that the kids have a voice and they are heard. And this is super important for them. They are placed beside the architect and the adult, and they are on the same level. So when they feel listen, they have power, and this is a very empowering thing. So I think because they see that they can change the school actually, and the school is not reluctant to change, but it is open and friendly enough to change for them. I think it opens this idea that, okay, we can change more within the school and we have the power to do more if we come together and we work as a team. And this is a very, important thing in the project, and that it aims for actually to create this empowerment and to make them feel that they can be active and creative within the community.
I think that's really powerful. I think what you said there is really interesting. That whole idea of they can change the school, that they've got, that they're empowered to do that. I just think from my own experience, school is almost the one thing in their life that a student can't change. It's quite as soon as they walk through the door, they're given a timetable of where they need to be at every second of the day. They're told when they eat. They're told when they have a break. They're told in the classroom. They're told which pen to use, which book to use, where to look in some cases at certain times, and especially in a lot of like traditional style teaching, which has made quite a big comeback in recent years, especially in the UK and America and other places, that kind of rigidity and almost complete control of the school over the student, and then to introduce a concept that the student can have an active participatory role of changing what happens within that building, to the point of actually changing the bricks and mortar of the place, is a powerful way to empower students, I imagine.
Yeah, and the space actually changes the last. So, firstly, we change our beliefs and what do we want. And after that, we change our environment to match our beliefs. So, it's really hard to change. But I think also the space is very democratic, because we all have access to it. And if you change something in a space, everybody can see it. And space is information. I mean, I'm sorry. Yeah, is information that we all the time receive in a way. So each building has a message, each intervention. So when you have this thing that appears and it's in front of us and we all have access to it, I think that it spreads the message more fast.
I agree. I totally agree, and I think it's really interesting in our early years settings. And I know that both me and Steve have been involved in having early years settings in our roles when we've done governors work, and actually supporting an early years setting, so children under the age of 4 and their environment and their space. It's very interesting how their curriculum is, in the UK anyway, is designed in such a way that it is geared around free play, and that children have got lots and lots of stimulus or stimuli, and they've got to then go and play with what they feel like they want to do that day, or they might be guided a little bit, but actually there's lots of options, and then the learning has to happen. The key worker does the learning with the student. Then as they get older, it turns into what Dan's talking about there, that very prescriptive idea of this is how it's going to be, and this is what you're going to learn, and this is what you need to learn. And what you're suggesting here, or what is potentially happening here with these young people, is giving them that autonomy and that opportunity for to have to take some responsibility. And I imagine that the confidence of these students and the kind of what you're really asking me, and then they see what's landed, what they've designed, and then what has been created. That level of I've done that, and that sense of ownership and stuff. I imagine that lands in there as well, does it?
Yeah, it does. And also you said about responsibility. So this was a thing. So they're eighth graders. So this year they are in high school, actually. So it was a question because so they start to do this project, but they don't have the time to enjoy it afterwards, no? But they were very okay about it because they understood that the other students will enjoy it for them, no? And after that, an interesting phenomenon happened actually, because so they kind of give the responsibility of taking care of the place to the fifth graders. So it was a cycle, and in a way, I felt like it was the same, like for me and them. So I came back in my hometown to help them to do this project. They did the project, and then they handed the project to the fifth graders. So this cycle of giving through to the next generation, and to kind of innovate through generations and try to help one another.
I love this because when I remember thinking back to my my high school days and doing design technology for my GCSE, and I made a fold-away footstool. I'm not sure why I thought.
Did you do GCSE, Steve?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, right. I did. But I remember it, and it was an individual project, and it was kind of like many of GCSEs where you do it in isolation. You have to create something, and I really enjoyed it. The reason I designed that was my dad was struggling, was having multiple operations, and having a foldaway footstool that he could take with him and in different contexts when he was waiting in hospital and stuff was something I did. But it was done in isolation. It was done because I found it. But I think what I'm fascinated about this one is how the shared collective is not just creating something, is reshaping and redesigning and making an impact as a collective. And I really like it how it's shifting and it's sharing that goal and bringing loads of different skills in rather than just doing it on your own. So I'd like to hear how do you focus and how do you build those skills around the work that you're doing? Is that a focus in regards to from the design originally to where it's at? How do you focus and develop those skills in students when they potentially haven't had them for, or I'm not sure what the structure in the education system is over there, but it's not probably focused on skill development over here.
Yeah, well, it's not. So, like the spaces of the school that are very rigid, the curriculum in Romania is also very rigid, and it's saved only by the teachers that are very good and passionate. So, but you said something about, you had a memory, you remember something with pleasure, and I think that this is the key here, because we are learning through experience, and we are creating memories, and we are creating emotions. So when you learn something by doing it, actually, it's part of your life. You really experience it through your full body. You have this. It will be with you through time, no? Instead of repeating things and just saying them. And this was a part also of me trying to get the kids to be more skillful in playing games with them. So for the ABCs of architecture, that can be in a way really boring, I try to make for every one of the principles one game. So we would have to do structures with toothpicks and clay, or to do puzzles with functions, and to arrange the spaces so we can have a coherent building. Or we would play bingo with architecture terms, and I would give them prizes, architecture magazine from my own archive. And now in the school that I am, I experience with them trying to do spaces using Midjourney, the IE generator, image generator. So they imagine a space, they have some keywords typed in, and then the IE generates an image of that space. And I'm trying to work with them by doing this also. And actually, this is a point that I want to develop further, because I'm curious if I could succeed in doing a design very hands-on using the IE with the kids, so that we can get, I don't know, some keywords together and to really have a shape generated by the IE. So yeah.
Yeah, that sounds fascinating. And in terms of I suppose, when we talk about like students helping to design their own spaces, have you ventured into kind of that realm of students building their virtual spaces? Because I guess students aren't just in a physical space now; they're also in a digital space in terms of learning as well. Is that an area you get into, or?
I would love to get into it, actually, but this step with Midjourney, it's the first step. And yeah, but I would love to design spaces with them in virtual reality. I think that they will be super into it, because they catch on very, very quickly with these things. They are very receptive with technology, of course, and they love it. So yeah, and I also think that in a way, I mean, I all the time I view teaching as a two-way street. You teach something, but you learn something in return. It's something that you share. Actually, it's not something that you impose or just say. No, it's something that you share between the student, and the student can teach you a lot of things. So I think it will be great to explore this field of doing with kids spaces in virtual reality.
I'm intrigued by what you did. That phrase you just said, that teaching is a two-way street. that is a phrase that I think any teacher training organisation needs to hear, that actually teaching is not one way. And Dan kind of alluded to, and Steve's already alluded to, in the UK, very, very much so, there is a resurgence of the traditional teaching, which is direct instruction. Teachers got information, the children need it, therefore you need to listen as a child, and your role as a teacher is to impart that information and impart that knowledge. It doesn't sit right with me. I know it doesn't sit right with the lads as well. That is the only method. I'm not saying you shouldn't do any direct instruction, but I think that idea that the children are valuable learning vessels and valuable teachers as much as you are. There's experience there, and there's a. I'm not trying to suggest that kind of crazy wacko idea that everybody's a teacher and everybody should, but there is something really powerful when you can learn from others, regardless of your age and your education and your qualifications and all the things that go with that ability to have that. I suppose that it's almost like a disposition of learning, isn't it? And moving to that idea of I am always trying to learn, whether I am supposed to be the teacher or not.
Yeah, and I actually think so. As I said, in Romania is the same. You have the teacher that repeats and repeats and repeats, and I actually think that repetition and this repetition kills the teacher. And I think that invention kind of, I don't know, makes him passionate again. So you have here in Romania, you have a lot of depressed teachers actually, because they lost this connection with the kids. And in a way, I think they don't understand why they lost it. But, well, as my experience was, I understood why they lost it, because they want different information, and they want to understand information differently. They want a different relationship with the teacher. So actually, we don't need information and data anymore. We have this. We need principles, and we need to learn how to juggle with information and data.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess that's this project, the skills that it's imparting in terms of the problem solving, the critical thinking, the collaboration, working together, iteration, unlearning, relearning. I think that it's skills that's going to do them well in all other areas of life, not just architecture. And I think it's, if that is the case, like you say, that's the environment of education, that's the kind of culture of education at the moment in Romania, then this sounds like a breath of fresh air for students who are taking part. And I imagine they probably come away from the project wanting all of their education to be like that in the future, which is only a good thing, and it's how it should be, I think.
Yeah, they were really happy to do architecture, and because I was so involved, and I wasn't a teacher before, so I did this teaching thing while I was an assistant teacher at the university for one semester with students, older students in their 5th year in architecture. And after that, nothing. And I think in a way, the fact that I wasn't a teacher, really made me apply things differently, or I don't know, look differently, or maybe with a fresh perspective, because in a way, I felt very free. I felt very free to invent and interact with them in a friendly way. I was very involved emotionally because I don't know, they were in my hometown, in my school and everything, and and every this whole context that was created helped me to just be with them, like emotionally to be with them and to really try to help them and be passionate about it. And I really think that I learned from the kids that you never underestimate kids. They are a surprise, and they have to offer a lot, and you just need to give them a stage and a voice and a space, and they will transform it. So
Yeah. Sorry, Steve. Go on.
No, I was, two things, and I'm deciding which question to ask first, I suppose. But in terms of, then you say everything's learning. After you've been through the process and the program for the period of time that you have you learned anything that has changed your approach to architecture and your other job from the work that you've been doing with the students? And have they given you any thoughts or insights that you didn't? Have you learned and applied any of that? Not saying that you've stolen their ideas and you're making money from it, but you get what I'm saying. That, like, is there anything that's changed your thought process in regards to how you tackle bigger projects in your day-to-day life?
Well, that's a very big question, and I think I will answer it in time. But I think I got more relaxed with architecture and space. I think that just working with them and doing a hands-on project and being there in the whole process, because they were the users and the designers at the same time. So being with them day by day, step by step, learning with them, and also, I don't know, seeing how they interacted through each phase of the project and how they interacted at the end of the project, kind of I had a lot of insight from it. And kids are very sincere, and that's very important, because when you interact with a client that's an adult, you have this diplomacy and whatever, and maybe everybody's hiding a little bit and has an image and a mask. But with kids, everything is very direct and sincere. So, yeah, I think I got more relaxed and more, I don't know, user-orientated after this. And the rest I will see, I think, in the future.
Yeah. It's. Are you going again with your second question, Steve?
No.
Sorry.
It's very different. So you carry on, Ben, and then
No. I was going different. So I'm going to go different. I'm going to do mine. So now you've muted yourself. You'll get one question in a row. You know the rules. That's just a little joke. So my thinking really is, you are talking about like transforming spaces that already exist, and you're trying to get the students involved in thinking about what it could look like and how it could change. And you also mentioned there about the idea of flexible learning spaces and how increasingly we're going to need flexible learning spaces. One of the things that I've been doing this week is working in a very big flexible learning space. And in that learning space, there was it was quite noisy. There were multiple screens. There were lots of distractions around. So the young people that I was working with, and I was doing some digital training with them, they had Chromebooks in front of them. There was a huge screen behind me. There was 4 or 5 other screens around the space as well, because it was quite a big open space. And I really like that. I really like that ability, that fluidity. But I can imagine some teachers and some students finding that quite difficult, that ability of having open spaces. So as we start thinking about designing from scratch, because I know that we're designing with pre-existing buildings already, but there's going to be people who listen to this who are considering new buildings, considering design and layout of those schools or colleges, and I wonder what you think the future of that's going to look like, despite the stuff that I was just saying there about the limitations around open spaces.
Well, I think that the first thing that they should do is to involve kids in the design process, and that will be, I think, great, and it will just set a new direction for things, because they have sometimes they have very specific desires and wishes about the space, and it can be great to do it in this way. Because otherwise, the normal way to design a school is, I don't know, you have the basic functions, you have some rules you have to check, and that's it. But to implement it with them and to hear their thoughts about it, I think that will be transforming. And otherwise, I don't know, with the spaces and what new spaces can you have, and well, it depends on what learning do you have. And I think, what type of learning do you have? Because you said something about a big space, that you felt the energy of everybody there, but for some people can be distracting. Well, it depended on how you did the lessons. So this is also very important, no? How do you learn and teach? And then how do you make the space accustomed to those needs?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a fascinating thing, and I remember just trying to think of the year. I think it was 2016. So quite a few years ago now. I wrote an article called "Knocking Down Walls," and I can't remember the name of the article, but yeah, I wrote an article.
I remember reading it. I remember reading it actually.
So yeah, God, I can't remember what I've written, but yeah, so it was basically a redesign and a refocus of delivering maths and English in further education in the UK, and we had this idea that we were getting traditional students and students who had been seen as a failure and not passed their GCSE maths and English, and who'd been doing it from the age of 11 until the age of 16. And then when they've been told, and it used to be a C and a D, but now it's a number, a 4 or a 5 or a 3. And then we were saying, but what we're going to do is, even though you didn't get it last time, we're going to do exactly the same, but we're going to condense it into 30 weeks and see how you get on. And I was like, this just can't work. So we changed it all. And I was like, one of the things, and we did involve students, we asked students, and I said, right, what could we do differently? So the reason why it was called knocking down walls was that's literally what we did. We changed the classroom structure. We added sofas in there, some real clever, cheap sofas from an organisation that you might have heard of, because Argos, the cheapest sofas we could get for our budget, and we put some furniture in there that we had repurposed, and we put Chromebooks in there. We removed the teacher and added study coaches and apprentices and all of these kind of things, and changed the teaching and learning role within those spaces. And the reason I'm saying it is because we asked the students, we did all of this, and that emulated. So we started with these independent learning zones, and the first model was 6. And then one of the things that I'm most proud about, really, is that then every new campus that has ever existed in that college, there are now, I think I want to say 30 or 40 independent learning zones across the college in every building, and I was involved in designing some new ones. And I remember the conversations with teachers, and they were saying, I don't like them. And I was like, why don't you like them? The students seem to like them. I really struggle teaching in there. And I said, it's really interesting. I said, because you say that you struggle teaching in there, but the students like learning in there. So maybe it's about the learning in that space rather than you trying to think of the traditional teaching in that space. And they talked about there isn't a screen at the front, there isn't walls in there in some spaces, it's too noisy, there's people walking past. And it was hot, and I had to then try and do some work around changing the culture around, but why is it you think you're going to stand up in the front and deliver in the same way? How can we do it different? How can we do facilitation and all those kind of things? And it just really kind of rung true when you were saying that actually ask the students, what is the space actually for? Because if you're going to stand up at the front and try and talk to the class of 30, the last thing you want is students not facing you, and with people walking past you, without walls and all those kind of things and bigger spaces. You want a confined space where you can control it. And I think I underestimated it, and I didn't do the culture bit enough right at the beginning, because I focused on the students and learning rather than the teaching. But just it was really interesting when you said that about asking the students. But the whole thing that I constantly and consistently said throughout the whole thing, and what really stuck with it was, whatever you're saying about the teaching, just remember, it's not about how you want to teach. It's about what the students and how they want to learn. We've tried it the other way. They don't seem to be getting it and achieving as class as an achievement. Let's do it this way, and let's see. And the results benefit from it. We booked the trend in regards to, we focused on progress, not passing, and everything else. And it wasn't down to me, just to say that. I'm not taking the credit here. It was one idea, and along a whole structure that changed the organisation's way of focus of maths and English learning. But yeah, it's a change of culture of focusing on the learning, not the teaching. If you want to redesign spaces, I think is.
Yeah, and in your example, it was space generating. No, the space generated this new interaction. No, and they wanted a different space. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And the other question I was going to ask, that's a complete different topic, is you mentioned it. You talked about virtual reality, and I can't not talk about it because Dan absolutely is obsessed with it, loves it. How do you see that playing a part in regards to online learning rather than traditional architecture of buildings? How do you see that developing in regards to the building and architecture and the structure in these online spaces, and how do you think that will play a part in learning going forward, if you have an opinion on it?
Yeah, well, I think that so we architects are actually all the time in a virtual space, because when we design a building, we do it, using our computers, and we are in this black and infinite space where we create shapes and transform them. So the only thing is that we don't enter it. No, well, it's there on the screen, and that's it. But I think that well mentally we enter it, and this is the next step, I think, to really enter the space and to design when you are in it, not see it from afar. And I think it will be really easy to implement this online. I mean, to make students do their project and to move around in their project and to experience the project of the building, not just above and do sections and plans and whatever, but to go in it.
Yeah, absolutely. There's Meta, formerly Facebook, have got a great app called Facebook Meta, not Facebook, Meta Horizons Worlds, and there's a creator mode in there, and I've played around in there quite a bit, and it's similar to what you're talking about. So you literally bring in shapes, and then with your hands you can in a 3D environment manipulate the shapes, put them together, and then you click a button on one of your controllers and you become a person in the space just with a click of a button. So you can go in, have a feel of it, see what it's like, and then click another button and come back out to like a bird's eye view and start creating again. And it's surreal. In fact, it made me quite dizzy the first time I did it, because it's very disorientating, kind of having that bird's eye view and then jumping into a space. But it's fascinating. It really is, I think, where this is going, especially with you just made me think that, because I've been thinking a lot recently.
Yeah, and now there are architects that design for the metaverse. I mean, this is really a job now, and I think architects really love this liberty that they have. And some questions pop up. Why do you need to have a dining room in the metaverse? No, I mean, why do you have to have a chair? Because you don't have to sit on it. Actually, you can have actually a very different thing. And right now, I think that the design in the metaverse is done like in reality, because we don't know how to do it now differently, but you don't know where it will go. I mean, it can be a completely different universe with other rules.
Yeah, absolutely.
That is funny, actually, thinking about it. We need to have chairs and desks and boards and screens, and it has to look like that. And that kids think differently, don't they? So yeah, I like that.
It is interesting. Sorry, I don't know what I was. I think I was talking a while ago. I thought my browser had crashed. But yeah, it's interesting, because I know a few people, and myself included, who are looking at kind of that designing a campus within the metaverse, and you do kind of feel like you think, oh, I know what it should look like. I know what it's going to look like, and you want to jump in and you want to get designing, but actually, it's not about what we want. It's about what's going to be best for students, and that whole idea of that Ben just mentioned there as well, and you did about the kind of natural inkling to make it look like a traditional classroom, like a traditional building, because that's just what we know a school to be. And the fact that we can work in a place of eternity, really, in no limits to what that learning space could be, is fascinating. It's been great talking to you and getting your perspective from your architectural background into all of this. It was great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It was great for me too. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Thanks for joining us. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll end it now, but stay on and we'll say goodbye.